Somebody along the way told you that it was wrong to think that you're so special. They made you feel like you were arrogant or self-centered because you focused on your own dreams or thought you were better at something than others. Let me set the record straight right now. You are special. Let's dive in. We're talking about empowering beliefs, mindsets that actually release you into your potential and help you realize your dreams and goals. And I'm starting today with the most controversial belief. My friend, I call him Unleashed Larry, he actually believes that he is special. Have you ever heard successful people talk about themselves? As you listen, you might think, wow, that person has a very self-inflated perspective. And if you've been raised like my other friend, I call him Confined Carl, you might even think to yourself, who do they think they are? Do they think they're special or something? And the reality is that, yes, they do think they're special, and that belief is paying off for them big time. Recently, people gave me a hard time on one of my posts because I talked about how special I am. And people don't like that. We'll talk more about that later, but I shared in the post how my dad told me when I was young that I was special and that I had actually believed it. Just that one thought ended up shaping so much of my teenage and young adult experience. For instance, when my high school friends started experimenting with drugs and alcohol, I wouldn't go there. I thought to myself, I'm special. I'm too good for that. I'm called to do something significant with my life, and I can't get into that kind of trouble. My belief that I was special put me on a path to making better decisions. But people don't want you going around believing that you are special. In fact, many of you have been told your whole lives, don't think that you're so special. The Confined Carls of the world don't want you to stick your head up above the crowd and see yourself for who you really are. And this isn't anything new. Way back in biblical times, even Joseph was going through this same thing. He had a series of dreams about himself that caused him to believe that he was special among his family members. In one of the dreams, it was implied that he was going to rise up above his brothers and that they would all bow down to him. Now, whether it was wise to share that dream with them or not is up for debate, but one thing is clear, his brothers despised him for his dream, and they hated him for thinking that he was so special. They hated him so much that they actually captured Joseph and sold him into slavery, telling his father that he was dead. It goes to show you just how much people feel the need to put you in your place and remind you that you're just not all that special. This has been going on for thousands of years. Of course, Joseph didn't let that deter him. Wherever he went, he continued to believe that he was special. And he excelled at everything that he did, from being a slave in Potiphar's house to being a prisoner in an Egyptian jail. Eventually, Joseph's dream, it came to pass. He rose to become the second most powerful man in all of Egypt. And as a matter of fact, his brothers did come and bow down before him. I wonder who's listening to this right now that will be willing to step out and start developing a belief about yourself that you are special. There are plenty of forces that will try and cause you to hesitate. Even family members, mentors, well-meaning friends, and church leaders, they'll often counsel you not to take yourself too seriously. They've been trained to make sure that you don't get too focused on your own dreams and desires, that you don't start thinking you're too special. Look, it comes from a good place. They feel like they're looking out for you, but their counsel is focused on questioning you and your desires instead of fanning the flame of specialness that God has put in you. I mean, how many times have you heard, is that a good idea or a God idea? Or don't think too highly of yourself. Unintentionally, this line of thinking can cause you to question the dreams and desires that God actually put there, and ultimately to question who you really are, wondering if these feelings of specialness are at odds with God's plan for your life. The church can be especially damaging in this area, sometimes making you feel like only the corporate church is special and that you're just a small part of something much bigger. When nothing could be further from the truth. God made you special, and you have a special role to play in the church and in the world around you. When my children were younger, we used to love to watch this DreamWorks animation movie called Home. In the movie, a cute little alien race, they call the Boov, are taking over the Earth. And their leader, Captain Smek, who's played by Steve Martin, he's a complete idiot. But he's in charge, right? And he carries around this large stick that he calls the shusher. And whenever any of the Boov has a bright idea, he pulls out the shusher, he whacks them on the head loudly, declaring, "Shush! Shush!" Right? And this is how he maintains order and how he secures his own leadership role. Well, why do I bring this up? Because whenever I watch this movie, I can't help but think about the number of shushers that there are in the world. How many of you are surrounded by shushers? Every time you start to have a dream or communicate a vision, they feel the need to speak up, whack you on the head, and shush you. It reminds me of another Bible story where a blind man named Bartimaeus was sitting along the road when Jesus was passing by. Now, Bartimaeus must have known about Jesus because he'd known that Jesus was so good, right? Because when Bartimaeus heard that Jesus was coming, he developed a vision on the inside of himself. It's what I love about Bartimaeus is that although he was blind, he had vision. He believed that if he could get Jesus' attention, that he was going to see. But Jesus was surrounded by a crowd of people, so Bartimaeus started crying out loudly, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." Over and over again, he shouted it out. And what happened? Of course, all the other people around Bartimaeus pulled out their shushers, right? Even Jesus' disciples. "Be quiet, Bartimaeus. Don't bother the master. Why do you think you're so special? Shush, shush, shush." Has this ever happened to you? The minute you decided to develop a vision, to step out into your purpose, to believe that you could actually do something special, the people around you just feel the need to shut you down. Well, Jesus hated this kind of response to people. In fact, just a few paragraphs later, when Jesus finds out that his disciples were turning children away from coming to him, telling them not to bother the master, treating them like they were unimportant, the Bible says that Jesus was indignant. Jesus rebuked them, saying, "Let the children come to me." And then he continued with something very insightful. "For unless you have faith like these little children, you won't even enter the kingdom." Jesus was saying, you're never going to experience the promises and the dreams and the vision that I have for you unless you develop a belief like children have. A belief that you can do anything. A belief that you are special. Jesus was saying, let the people who are filled with vision come to me. So of course, when Jesus hears Bartimaeus crying out, full of faith and vision, he stops and has Bartimaeus brought to him, and Bartimaeus is instantly healed. This is what Jesus came to do, the Bible says, to bring you abundant life. But the enemy has come to steal, kill, and destroy all of your dreams. It's the voice of the enemy that shushes you into insignificance and silence to convince you that you are not special. And he has done his best work once he convinces you to shush yourself. Because the most damaging shusher of all is when you shush yourself. Some of you have been around shushers so much that even before you speak out a vision, maybe even before a dream has fully developed inside you, you're already telling yourself to shush. Somebody needs to press pause for just a second and just take a second to say out loud, I'm not going to be shushed anymore. Somebody needs to shout out right now, I am special. Allow yourself to believe again and embrace that childlike faith that you can do and become anything that you want. Can you imagine the impact that all of us watching this could have on the world if we could just embrace those dreams within us and allow ourselves to believe, I am special? Here's a success challenge for this week. If you want to be successful, if you want to achieve your dreams, part of the game is developing a strong mindset. And part of a strong mindset is believing, I am special. I want you to find a mirror at least 3 times a day this week. Look yourself dead in the eye and tell yourself, I am special. If you have any questions for me that I might be able to help you with on a future episode, post them in the comments down below. We love just to hear from you and to create content that's super relevant for you. So put them in the comments and my team will tee those up to me for future episodes. Until then, have a great week and I'll see you next time.